Hello, I'm going to go over how to log into Zoho and navigate towards the creator application, where we are able to make the reports. First, you are going to click where it says sign in. Then you're going to input your email address. And then insert your password. Once you have done that, you are going to find the creator application right here and click on it. Once you have clicked on it, you should be directed to this page here on the screen.
Okay, so now we're going to cover some of the different solutions offered in Zoho Creator and give you an introduction and overview to the solution that we will be using for the reporting system. So when we go to create a new solution, you can see three different ones: applications, BI and analytics, and integration flows. BI and analytics is used for unifying data from multiple sources to create interactive and insightful reports. So we'll go ahead and select that. We're going to import from different sources. And we will be using an Excel file. So first thing we're going to do is manually import a file to include in our application. So you can select the file that you would like to upload. So we're going to start with our impacts file. This is an Excel file, so Excel, next. Okay, now all of our data has been imported. So this looks correct, so we're going to hit next. Here we have different formatting options. We're just going to leave it as a default and go ahead and create that table. So once we've logged in, created our BI and analytics application, and we have a single table, we can from there go ahead and upload our other tables into our application. So here in this dashboard, this Explorer is going to be our main area to see things that we've created in our application, so we can see our impacts file. So let's go ahead and upload the two other files. So we're going to go to this Create tab. We are going to be importing data, so we're going to New Table. Same thing, we're going to be using an Excel file. This is going to be the registrations file. This is an Excel file, so we want to check Excel. I'm going to post it locally. Or sorry, we're going to actually be posting this from a CSV file. Registrations, go ahead and post that. Next. All right, so that is uploaded correctly. All of our columns are in the data sheet. Go ahead and leave all the defaults and create the table. All right, so now we have our registrations folder, and let's go ahead and upload that schedule folder or schedule table as well. Same process. This is going to be schedule. We can grab that schedule file. Go to next. Our columns look good, so we can go ahead and upload that. And these all defaults are good for the upload settings. This setting is just date format, so we can leave that as is. Go ahead and create that. And that imported successfully. So now we have all of our tables available for view on our Explorer dashboard. The impacts file, and we can go ahead and rename this to impacts, registrations, and the schedule folder. Okay, so now we're going to look at the reports function in the BI and analytics application. So if we head over to this reports tab here on the left, we don't have any reports currently, so let's go ahead and create our impacts report. So immediately we're greeted with 4 options to create a report. We're going to be using the pivot view. This is going to allow us to manipulate the different columns within the tables that we're basing the report off of, similar to a pivot table in Excel. So let's go ahead and select that. Now we do have to select a table to base it off of, just like in Excel. We're going to do the impacts table because we're doing the impacts report. So let's start that. So this is very, very similar to creating a pivot report in Excel. So let's go ahead and build that report out. So the first thing we're going to do is put our start date in our column, and our event name in our rows, and let's just generate that and see how that looks. So we can see our years, and actually we can do that in a second. So we can see this is showing us each year and each company name in our impacts folder in a table like this. We don't have any data, so there's nothing showing up yet. And we don't want to necessarily have our year. We'd like to be more specific. So what we can do is head over to our column entry that we've made and click this drop down here. So we're going to do month and year setting, and let's regenerate that and see how that looks. Great. So now we can see December 2014, January 2015, all the way down till the end of the file, right? Now we don't want to see every single month that is in the folder. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a user filter. And so this is going to allow us to do things like show the previous month only, show the previous 3 months, the previous year, whatever we want to show, we can do that here. And we do that by dragging the column that we want to filter by into this area. So we're going to filter by start date. And then we're going to click this edit. So filter by start date, date rate, selector. We want to show relative periods because we want previous month, previous however long. So let's go ahead and do the previous 3 months. And then whichever checkbox you've checked here, you're going to have to type into this field. So last 3 months, and it autofills for us. So we click OK. Now if we generate that report, we can see that only February is showing because that's as far back as this file, the data in this file goes. So let's show the last previous year, so we can see more dates. So let's generate that, and there we go. All right, so now we're going to build out the impacts report by putting some data into our pivot table. So the first thing we want to do is we want to move our start date to be in our rows section. And we want to put it above the event name so that it comes grouped before the event name. So now we can see for each month of however particular long we've put in our filter, we can see the month, the year, and then all the companies that we have a record, an impact record for that month. So let's go ahead and start building that report out. Let's put the meat, poultry, fish, casserole data into our table. So let's generate that. So we can see that it's actually adding up all of our records, which we don't want. So we can go to this display definition drop-down menu, and we actually want to just show a normal count for that data field. And there we go. So this is actually our correct displayed record. The next thing we want to add in is our produce, our prepared vegetables, the deli and sandwiches, the dairy and eggs. And another thing we can do is just check that. Oh, and then sometimes it puts it where you want it, but sometimes it does not. Need that to be here. And next is non-perishable. Then we want bread and bakery. And then we want beverage. Okay, so let's generate that report, see what that looks like. All right, so that looks correct. Another feature that you can do in the Zoho pivot report is you can rename your columns. So we can actually rename this to just be called produce for a cleaner looking report. And so in the actual report, we've gone ahead and renamed all of these to their correct names. But now let's show how to do a formula column. So one of the columns that we want here in this impacts report is our nutritious foods column. And this is going to be adding up our entries for the meat, the produce, prepared vegetables, deli and sandwiches, and dairy and eggs. So here's how we're going to do that. We click this icon here, add formula, and let's name it nutritious foods. And here's how we build that out. So we just click on what we want for a column, plus sign, because we're going to be adding them together. Then plus produce, plus prepared vegetables, plus deli, plus dairy and eggs. And so that's how we're going to define that column. And there we go. So let's generate that, make sure it looks correct. And there we go. So yeah, that one worked. And now we have the totals for that. And it's a similar process for the other columns for household goods, non-nutritious foods, total foods, and total. That's how those columns are created. Okay, so now we can go ahead and build out the rest of our impacts report. One thing we want to do is we have this set to count. We want to go ahead and change that back to a sum. So let's go ahead and add the rest of our function columns. So the first one we're going to need is household goods. And this is the sum of, let's see, where is that? Sum of columns. So this is another thing we can do. So we can add the columns that we need. So this is going to be these two. We don't want to directly display these in our data. So we're going to put them in our column section. Put them here, generate that. And then what we're going to want to do is hide them. So we want to hide those two columns. And we want these to be dimensions. Okay, so they're not going to work as dimensions here. So we can just move these over here to our data section, generate that. And then we're going to use this hide functionality. So we can hide those columns by unchecking them here. So they're not going to be listed here. And the reason we did that is because we need access to those columns in our formula. And you can only use data and rows that you have included in your pivot table. That's why these are going to show up here, but not in our table. So to create that, it's going to be household goods equals this plus the other household goods entry. You can go ahead and save that. Create another one. This is going to be nutritious foods. And this is going to equal the sum of the first 5 columns. Sorry, not the first 5 because we added these. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, and then 6 and 7. So we can save that. The next one is non-nutritious foods. Non-nutritious foods. And this is going to equal the sum of meat, or sorry, the sum of the bakery and the non-perishables. So plus bread and bakery. Save that. Perfect. Next, total food. Total food is going to equal the sum of the nutritious and the non-nutritious. So we will have to do those manually. And so this will create the total food. And our last column that we're going to have a formula for is the sum of all the original fields. And that's just going to be called total. So we can go ahead and just add those all together. Perfect. So let's go ahead and create that. And we can see we now have our function-based columns. And the last thing we're going to do is utilize our column rename function to have better column names. So we're just going to call this beverage. Bread and bakery. Non-perishable. Oops. Dairy and eggs. Sandwiches. Vegetables and fruit. All right, so if we go into view mode, now we can see our finished impacts report. And so one last step, or not last step, but we have our finished report. So now the last thing we can do to customize is add other start dates. So we have our previous year here. So if we wanted to add, or to change this, we would go to edit design, user filters, and we would change from previous year. We could add another one, or sorry, we just go to edit that. And then we change to whatever period we want. So if we only want, let's say the last 3 months, we just check this box instead. And then we change the text here to be last 3 months. Click OK, generate. And now that's been updated. So we have February 2022. and we can go to view mode. And there's our finished impacts report.
So this is going to be the MI report for impacts, and this report is showing the actual number of impacts in the impact file. How you make this is by adding a start date and an event name to the rows section and the impact ID to the data. You're going to want to choose the full date option for the start date and use a filter for the last 3 months for the start date, like this. I'm going to go to relative period again, month, last 3 months, and type that in here. And that should generate the correct information that you're going to need. So this report is going to show the expected number of impact records we should expect based on the registrations file. And how you're going to make this is basically the exact same way, but instead of choosing the impacts file, you're going to choose the registrations file. And the only difference between this one and the other one is for the filters, you're going to want to choose previous month instead of the last 3 months.